Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
You know, I knew it. I knew it when I woke up today. I knew I was coming down with something, and I jinxed myself. I was just thinking, may have been even yesterday, how long it's been since I've had a cold. It's been a long time. And I woke up today, got that thing in my throat, actually at the top of the chest, the bronchial tubes, is moving up. You probably can't tell because the audio sound processing we use here. But my voice is very, very weak here. If it weren't for the magical audio processing and compression that we use, you could probably tell. So anyway, it just ticks me off. I do everything I can to not get a cold. I make sure I smoke plenty of cigars. Because nicotine is the thing that does it. I'm telling you, in my case, it's what wards off the common cold virus. You know, I used to smoke cigarettes and I quit, and I had a cold for 4 straight months. Could not get over one. I had to go on a cruise to give my voice a rest. That was incredible. So, at any rate, I'm not complaining. I'm just advising you folks. Sometimes when this happens, various forms of fatigue sweep over me during the course of the program, and when that happens, things can get a little giddy. So, just a little heads up. Besides all that, it's great to have you here. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Did you see where Hillary Clinton wants victims of gun violence to be able to sue gun manufacturers now? And she is promising that if she's elected president, she's going to use executive orders to get rid of guns or do something. She's going to use executive orders to manifest some kind of sweeping gun control legislation. Now, following the logic of allowing the victims of gun violence to sue the gun manufacturer, should Babe Ruth have been allowed to sue Hillary Bradsby every time he struck out? They're going to regret that analogy. I guarantee. Or try this. Does that mean that the families of the Benghazi victims will be allowed to sue Hillary? I mean, if we're going to go out and try to find and be able to sue the people responsible for making victims, and in this case, Hillary thinks it's the gun, well then, could the Benghazi victims be allowed to sue Hillary and sue Obama? The Benghazi families have a lot more of a case than the gun manufacturers do. In fact, why didn't Hillary and Obama just blame Benghazi on the guns? I mean, we have 4 dead Americans. We had terrorists using weapons and guns. And why didn't they blame the guns there? No, look, I know it sounds facetious, but I'm being half serious here. If guns kill people, why not blame guns for what happened in Benghazi? Instead, they blamed this stupid video that nobody ever saw. You know, when it comes to this kind of thing, look what they do. They blame a video for what? Creating anger and behavioral problems in a mass number of people who then go out and get guns and start shooting people. Isn't it amazing that when the same set of circumstances here, like take the shooter in Oregon, what did he watch? What did he see? And where did he watch it and see it that made him want to go get his guns and start shooting people? If it works for Benghazi, in other words, a video, then why does it work in Oregon? Why doesn't it work in North Carolina with Dylan Root? Why doesn't it work anywhere else? Only in America is it the guns problem. It's never the guns problem in the Middle East, or the gun is never at fault. The left always can find a way to blame people when they want to. When they don't want to blame people, they'll blame the gun. But they're never consistent with this. Why are we bombing ISIS? Why don't we just bomb their weapons? I thought if the weapon is the problem, if the guns, I don't care what kind of guns, if it's the missiles, I don't care what kind of missiles, if it's bombs, I don't care what kind of bombs, if it's the inanimate object then why don't we start attacking the bombs and the guns, and why don't we start suing the people that manufacture the weapons that ISIS is using? No, I'm telling you, I'm being half serious. I'm trying to illustrate a point. Here you have a school shooting in Oregon, and right off the bat, it's the gun, and we got to get rid of the gun. The shooter is his own kind of victim in the left's world. In the case of Benghazi, we had some stupid video maker that nobody ever heard of who supposedly made a video that nobody ever saw, and that was blamed. Even the families of those killed in Benghazi were told it was a video that did it. Not the terrorists, not the guns. It was the video that did it, and the video was credited with turning rational people irrational and made them go get guns and kill people. And we even found a way to put the maker of the video, the producer of the video, in jail, where I think he still languishes, if I'm not mistaken. Side issue. If I'm wrong about that, doesn't count against the accuracy rating because it's not an opinion. But regardless, do you see the inconsistencies here? And if you do you understand them? In the United States of America, the left has a desire. That's to get rid of all guns, and so that every shooting that happens here is the fault of the gun. If the gun weren't there, the shooting wouldn't have happened, the crime wouldn't have taken place. But in war, or in an event like Benghazi, where the administration clearly is to blame and is complicit, the weapons are irrelevant in the death of 4 Americans. No, some innocuous video that did it. Now, the only point of bringing this up is to point out the hypocrisy and the intellectual dishonesty of these people to try to illustrate what the real motive is. And that is the continued drip loss of liberty and freedom. The Afghan hospital. You know, have you heard, we bombed this hospital yesterday or recently, and there were, I think, 19 deaths. 19 dead, 3 of them were children. Why don't we blame the bombs? And if you heard the Afghanis, or no, one of our generals is saying the Afghans asked us to hit that hospital. It's never our fault. When Obama is in charge, it's never our fault. Now, the Afghanis asked us to hit that hospital, but even so, why not blame the bomb? How come we're not going after the person that dropped the bomb or the person that ordered the bomb dropped? We're trying to shift blame, whatever. It can't be Obama, whatever. I just think these glaring inconsistencies here need to be pointed out. And again, what's the purpose? The quest is to, I know it seems pointless, maybe fruitless, but the effort is to try to convince as many people who are caught up in all this that the gun is the problem, that it isn't, and to be vigilant and understand why they should not fall for it. That's the whole point, folks. See if it works. I have 3 stories here. The headlines are enough. Workers remove 10 Commandment monument from Oklahoma City Capitol grounds at 10:30 p.m. to keep protesters from demonstrating. Next headline, pork products face workplace ban for being offensive. And the next headline, school cancels America Day. 4th headline, do you know what the fastest growing language in the United States is? Nope, it's Arabic. Fastest growing, not the most spoken, the fastest growing language in the United States is Arabic. Here's another headline. World's first lesbian bishop calls for church to remove crosses and to install Muslim prayer space instead. There is a creep that is happening throughout Western nations, Western cultures, and Western civilization countries. It is a creep through various means, illegal immigration, normal immigration, intimidation, political correctness, what have you. But Western civilizations are pretty much in the process of erasing themselves, in my view anyway. The people who wish to erase Western civilization, in many cases, are not even firing a shot. Some are, such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda and all that, but the illegal immigrants are not firing a shot. La Raza's not firing a shot. A number of the domestic upheavals in this country are happening not because of any kind of force. They're happening because of political correctness, fear, intimidation, you name it. First story, U.S. Daily Mail, a granite monument of the Ten Commandments that has sparked controversy since its installation on the Oklahoma Capitol grounds was removed late yesterday. It'll be transported to a private conservative think tank for storage. A contractor the state hired began removing the monument shortly after 10:30 last night. The removal of the Ten Commandments monument comes after the Oklahoma Supreme Court's decision in June that the display violates a state constitutional prohibition on the use of public property to support any sect, church, denomination, or system of religion. We are a Christian nation, Judeo-Christian ethic. We were founded and established that way, and we are erasing ourselves. We are allowing it to happen under the guise of religious freedom, except it's not religious freedom that's making this happen, because religious freedom is also under assault and could be said to be suffering defeats. Try employing your religious freedom if you're a county clerk in Kentucky. Try using your religious freedom if you're a pizzeria or a bakery or what have you in Indiana, Southern California, or Colorado. You'll find that your religious freedom doesn't mean anything. But in the name of religious freedom, the Ten Commandments monument must come down so as not to offend anybody who doesn't believe in them. It used to be our country. I mean, this is what was the United States. This was how it was funded. Now they're found in the melting pot, I guess. The people who believe this country was founded in an immoral way, is immoral, is unjust, and has been for over 200 years, must engage in all this to erase its history of racism, slavery, discrimination, or whatever. In other words, the United States has been flawed from the get-go, and it's time now to fix it. And every precept and principle on which the nation was founded was discriminatory, bigoted, or what have you, and so must not stand. And the melting pot used to be people coming here wanting to become Americans. Now it seems like people are coming here trying to erase America. And many who live in America are actually doing the erasing. Next headline, Breitbart, communal workplace kitchens. Communal workplace. What is a communal workplace kitchen? Does that mean like our little kitchen in here? I mean, we're a workplace. It's the communal that has, what is that, communal? Does it mean that we have to open it up to people outside the office here? Well, whatever it means, here's the story. Communal workplace kitchens may soon face a ban on pork products like sausage rolls and ham sandwiches over fears that they are offensive to certain faiths. See how guilty we are, folks. Ham sandwiches is a sign of the bigotry that this nation is, always has been, and has become. New guidelines posted by, actually, this is, I think, a UK story, but whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, the things happening at Western nations in Europe are tantamount to happening here, too. New guidelines proposed by Coexist House, a U.S. and UK-based interfaith group, which means it's a leftist group disguised as a religious group. Coexist House, a U.S. and UK-based interfaith group, urges employers to consider the rules of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, and Sikhism as well as new religions like Scientology. It warns bosses to be sensitive to workers' religions before allowing ham products to be stored or prepared alongside other products. You know who's jealous about this is the vegans. The vegans, they've had to share refrigerators with meat eaters and all of this time. All they would have had to do was make a religious argument about it, and the meat people would have had to remove their stuff, leaving the fridge exclusively for the use of the vegans. But now here come these other religions saying, we don't like pork, we don't like ham, you got to get it out of the fridge, you can't even have it in the kitchen if we're going to be there. And we're saying, okay, we'll get rid of it. The Brits are saying, fine, we don't want to offend you. We'll also suggest that alcohol should not be served at corporate events in case it upsets the feelings of members of certain faiths. Andy Dinham, professor of faith and public policy at Goldsmiths, University of London, is preparing the guidelines that will be put forward to employers this week. He told the Sunday Times, yeah, it'd be good etiquette to avoid heating up foods that might be prohibited for people of other faiths. The microwaves example is a good one. We also say don't put kosher or halal and other special foods next to another food or, God forbid, on the same plate. You cannot do that. October 5, 2015, Fox News, Todd Starnes, patriotic teenagers, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, showed up to class waving American flags in defiance of educators who canceled America Day over fears it might upset students who do not consider themselves to be Americans. I want you to listen to this lead again. Patriotic teenagers, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, showed up in class waving American flags in defiance of educators who canceled America Day over fears it might upset students who don't consider themselves to be American. I guess, ladies and gentlemen, it's too late to ask what non-Americans are doing at a school in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or why American taxpayers are paying to educate non-Americans, and then why we are deferring to non-Americans who are offended by the American flag in an American school? You know what this really epitomizes? This illustrates the difference between immigrants in the past and those of today. Immigrants in the past came here to be Americans. They loved the American flag. They wanted that flag to fly above them. They revered, respected, and honored that flag. They could not wait to assimilate. They could not wait to become citizens. They could not wait to wave that flag as their own. They would have jumped at the chance to engage in an America Day. Why do we even need an America Day in the first place? Well, regardless, immigrants of old would have jumped at the chance to participate in a day celebrating America. But today, immigrant students who are non-Americans are offended, don't want to see the flag, and what do the school administrators do? Okay, don't shoot. We'll take it down. Don't bomb. We'll take it down. One little tidbit about Jackson Hole, Wyoming. America Day was part of a homecoming tradition at the Hass School. Students would show up to class either waving American flags or wearing red, white, and blue clothing. And many different students felt singled out. They felt odd. They're not American, and they just felt weird. They felt inferior. They felt like they were being left out. Here's America celebrating itself, and they're not American. It's very unfortunate. So, school says, we're trying to be inclusive and safe and make everybody feel safe. I'll tell you what. Without it, well, can't say they're not firing shots, but it's fear. We're in a total defensive, fearful position. Okay. And we engage in this under the guise of being open-minded and politically correct, but it's fear. Anyhow, from Breitbart, world's first lesbian bishop. And by the way, for all this other political stuff, we got the political news. We got Biden talking to Maureen Dowd about his son saying run for president. All it seems to be big news. It's captivated the attention here of the drive-bys. Trump dropping in the polls got everybody. I mean, you wouldn't believe the orgasms in the Republican establishment and media taking place over that. And some other things out there. You know, all of that really, I know it's important. It's secondary to me to this stuff. And we can sit around and debate, you know, what people say running for president and all that. But while all that's happening, this cultural deprivation and rot and the erasing of Western civilization is happening right under our nose, right in front of our eyes. I mean, we're looking at it. We are not only looking at it, we are enabling it. The Bishop of Stockholm has proposed a church in her diocese remove all signs of the cross and put down markings showing the direction to Mecca for the benefit of Muslim worshippers. Eva Brunn, who was made the world's first openly lesbian bishop by the Church of Sweden in 2009, and has a young son with her wife and fellow lesbian priest Gunilla Linden, made the suggestion to make those of other faiths more welcome. A, she cannot have a son with her wife. But I'm the one that's going to get in trouble for pointing that out. It's not biologically possible. But anyway, again, don't want to make a big deal out of that. So, is this what Muslims do? In their churches, do they take down all references to Mecca and put up the cross with directions, say, to the Holy Land? Do mosques do? Can you go into a mosque and see the cross with directions to Jerusalem or Bethlehem? I don't think so. The church targeted is the Siemens Mission Church in Stockholm's eastern dockyards. The bishop held a meeting there this year and challenged the priest to explain what he would do if a ship's crew came into port who were not Christian but wanted to pray. Okay, fine. As though they couldn't find a place. Okay, let's move on to the Trump stuff. We go to the audio sound bites. And first up, Stuart Stevens. This is last night on CNN with the program is The Lead with Jacob Tapper. And he spoke with Stuart Stevens as a former Mitt Romney campaign strategist. And, of course, they're talking about the Trumpster and the Trumpster's presidential campaign. And Tapper says to Romney's campaign strategist, and these people know about losing, so they might be the ones to ask. You don't think Trump's going to make it, eh, Stu?
I don't think he's going to be on the ballot by February 1. I think he said it tonight, that the greatest sin in his value system is to be a loser. And most people who run for president lose. I don't think he'll risk it.
So the theory there is that, using Trump's own words, the greatest sin in the Trump world is to be a loser. Most people lose who run for president. Trump will get out before he officially loses. Stuart Stevens' point is Trump will get out before anybody can say he's a loser. He will withdraw his candidacy. Therefore, again, nobody can ever say he lost or was defeated. He pulled himself out. So now, since this has become the conventional wisdom, it's not just here with Stuart Stevens on CNN last night. It's been all over the drive-by since the weekend, and maybe even toward the tail end of last week. It's just one of these things that's taken over. They see a poll or two go by that Trump doesn't gain any ground and maybe loses a half point or a point. They get all excited. Trump has peaked. It's on the downside now, and it becomes conventional wisdom that Trump's best days are behind him. So now all they do is ask him about that. CNN this morning, New Day, Chris Cuomo Said, look, depending on the poll people are catching you, Donald, it's actually making people start to speculate about you when you'll get out of the race, which I find very unusual. Usually a frontrunner isn't discussed in terms of when they'll get out. But I read somewhere where you said if you fell behind badly, you would get out. Are you thinking about when you would get out of the race?
Not even 1% of a thought. Look, it's a phony deal that was perpetrated on the public. I was asked a simple question by Chuck Todd at Meet the Press, and I gave a very honorable and honest answer. I said, sure, if I was doing terribly, like some of these people, I wouldn't stay in. I mean, who would stay in? But I'm not. I'm leading every single poll. One poll came out the other day. I'm at 35% nationally, 35%. I'm 20 points ahead of everybody else. Why would I get out? I'm not going anywhere. I'm leading every poll. I'm going to win, and I'm going to make our country great again.
And they weren't through. The conversation continued. We just busted it up so that we don't have a rule here. No soundbite goes longer than a minute just because of audience attention spans. Here's the continuation of the conversation.
You hear people saying that you should get out or you have to change.
I don't hear that, Chris. I don't hear that.
Well,
he asked a question.
Well, you do hear Romney's guy
Chris,
went on and said, I think he's going to get out before Iowa.
Question. It's so disgusting. I'll tell you what. The media is so dishonest. It's so disgusting. Let me make it a little bit different. I'm not getting out. I'm going to win, okay? I gave a very honest answer, but the press takes an answer like that, and they make it like, oh, there's a big story. They make headlines out of it. It's ridiculous.
Well, you know, in a way, you have to think that's going to happen. When you tell these people that hate your guts and want you to lose and want you out of the race, and these people have an impact on polls, when you tell these people if you start lagging behind in the polls, you'll get out, what do you think they're going to do? When they want you out in the first place, they're going to make that the narrative. Trump. Losing ground. Trump says he'll get out. Will you get out, Donald? Are you? And they changed the whole frame of reference about the Trump campaign. Don't forget, these people, you know, every one of these people has their own polling unit. CNN's got their own polling unit. NBC has theirs, and ABC has theirs, and NBC and the Wall Street Journal have theirs, and the New York Times, CBS have theirs. And I don't care how above board and honest they are, you can get any result you want in any poll simply by toying with the sample. And look, even if you monkey with the sample and you are honest about how you've monkeyed with the sample, you can still produce a poll that shows Trump losing ground. You can do nothing but Democrats or this or that, and you could show Trump losing ground. And even if you say, yeah, we went out, we've got a skewed sample here, but the result is what matters. That's what gets reported. I'm sure Trump was talking about people like Kasich and Pataki, people in it 0.5%, you know, Lindsey Graham just be 1%, 2%, or whatever. But that's all it took. They're salivating. They can't wait, and they want to be the reason why, by the way. All these media people, they are in a mad quest for the scalp. They want to be able to say they are the reason Trump was forced out of a campaign. We'll take a brief time out here, continue in moments. Don't go away. Meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. This is the Rush Limbaugh program of the EIB network, where every day is America Day. And don't doubt it. Every day is America Day here at the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies and the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Gloria Borger next. CNN last night, Situation Room, Wolf Blitzer said to Gloria Borger, Trump's lead in New Hampshire's narrowing out there. Gloria, what do you think of that?
He's still leading, but the air is slowly sort of seeping out of the balloon a bit. I mean, obviously, he is the front runner. But if you look at his polling in New Hampshire, for example, Wolf, he was beating his nearest competitor a month ago by 16 points. That's a huge lead. Now he's just ahead of Fiorina by 5 points. You see the field shifting, not dramatically, but you can see that Trump is not in the stratosphere anymore.
Right, and here's Megyn Kelly on Fox News last night opening the show, reporting on a new poll.
Breaking tonight, 3 new polls showing big moves in the Republican field. And for the first time in 3 months, one national poll showing a new man on top. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Brand new polling out tonight from Investors Business Daily has Dr. Ben Carson in first place at 24% in a national survey. Only the second time Carson has ever been on top, and the first time someone has bested Donald Trump since early July.
Well, see, they're all reveling in this. See what they can't wait. Now, Jim Garrity has the National Review campaign spot blog has a post. And I'll tell you who's really got bad poll numbers out there, but you're going to have to dig really deep to find them. You know who I'm talking about? Hillary Clinton's polling, they're horrible. Hillary Clinton's polling numbers are just almost in the dirt. But you're not going to find that. You're going to find, in fact, the exact opposite. You're going to find stories about Hillary is killing it now. Hillary's finally coming back. Hillary's much better as an underdog than as a front runner. Hillary's got her game on. Hillary's back. Oh, they're celebrating out there. Meanwhile, her poll numbers, you need the Hubble telescope to find them. In many places. In Iowa, Jeb Bush, who barely shows up in Republican polls. Oh, by the way, speaking of that, the Daily Beast, you know, not the Daily Caller, the Daily Beast, that left-wing site that was started by Tina Brown, they've got a piece today saying, Jeb, get out. It's time to get out, Jeb. You're wasting your donors' money. You're not going to win. You're embarrassing the Bush family and doing everything else. You just get out now. And you'll be doing so many people so many favors. You'll spare the country of another Bush-Clinton race, perhaps. You'll spare your donors a bunch of money, and they're dead serious about it. Well, of course, they would be dead serious, being a left-wing site. But before in Iowa, what poll is this? This is NBC News. Republican Jeb Bush leads Hillary by 10 points in a hypothetical general election matchup among registered voters. You can't find Jeb on the Republican side, but in a matchup against Hillary, he creams her. It's 50 to 40%. Donald Trump's ahead of her by 7 points, 48 to 41. And that's unchanged from the same poll a month ago. Carly Fiorina leads Hillary in Iowa by 14 points, 52 to 38. She beats Hillary better than Bush or Trump. Yeah, that's a 14-point margin for Carly Fiorina, if we are to believe any of this. Now, when you throw Bernie Sanders in and you match him up against the same Republicans, his numbers are stronger than Hillary's. Sanders beats Trump by 5 points in Iowa, 48 to 43. Remember, Trump beats Hillary by 7. He narrowly trails Bush, 46 to 44. Bush beats Hillary by 10. And he is narrowly behind Carly Fiorina at 45-42. Carly is just killing Hillary by 14 points. The same dynamic plays out in New Hampshire. Clinton leads Trump in New Hampshire, 48-45, but she's behind Bush and Fiorina. Yet Sanders has the advantage against both Trump and Fiorina, and he's tied against Bush. So Sanders is doing much better than Hillary. Hillary really, really in bad shape polling-wise. And the margin of error for this point is 3 points. Now, Garrity says here with numbers that weak, it may be time for Republicans to do everything they can to help save her campaign. Just an attempt at a joke. Now, same poll, NBC Wall Street Journal. This is Garrity writing. Garrity's not a fan of Trump. He says you'll see a lot of Trump foes citing the NBC poll and high-fiving, concluding that Trump's moment has passed. But don't overstate this. NBC poll in Iowa has him sliding from 29 to 24%. The NBC poll in New Hampshire has Trump sliding from 28 to 21%. But he's still leading in both states. And then there's this Investors Business Daily poll has Ben Carson at 24%, Trump at 17%. But as Garrity writes here, be very wary or a little wary of the sample size. 377 registered voters who are Republican or registered independents who lean toward the Republican Party with a margin of error plus or minus 5 points. That's a small sample, and it's a big margin of error. And it's the first Investors Business Daily poll of the cycle. So Garrity is trying to warn everybody all excited about this. Hey, it's this bunch's first poll, Investors Business Daily first poll. It's a very small sample, 377 registered Republicans or registered independents who lean Republican and a margin of error plus or minus 5. So, but anyway, doesn't matter. They got the polling data, and that's all they need. Doesn't matter who, doesn't matter where. They've got a poll that shows Trump sliding. And various interested parties, such as the media and the Republican establishment, are going to run with it. Okay, that's the first hour. Busy broadcast here at EIB Network. A brief time out here. We'll come back and wrap it up. And we've got great call roster on hold here, waiting to get on it, and then lots of other things to touch on, including Biden and this latest bit of news that the drive-bys are all excited about. Biden himself leaked word of his son's dying wish to Maureen Dowd. That's why we know of this story. All right, so you hang in there, be tough. We will be right back. Just getting warmed up here, folks. 2 big, exciting broadcast hours to go here on the Rush Limbaugh program, including news that Bill Clinton did nothing to retaliate against the people who bombed the Khobar Towers. Details coming up. The views expressed by the host of this program documented to be almost always right 99.8% of the time. Great to be with you. El Rushball behind the golden EIB microphone. Telephone number is 800-282-2882 if you want to join us. And the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Okay, Joe Biden. Now, this has been an interesting case study. There has been fear and concern over the weaknesses of Hillary Clinton. Her polling numbers have been in the tank for most of the campaign. She does not excite anybody. She doesn't draw any crowds. She doesn't sell any books. She has no connection with Democrat voters at all on a personal basis. She has really no audience, if you want to look at it in that way. She's considered, she's a de facto fait accompli frontrunner, much like she was in 2008. It's her turn, it's her time. The Democrat Party, it's her theory, owes her for all of the personal sacrifices she made going way back to when she left college and moved to Arkansas with Bill Clinton. Everything she's done, she had to endure one humiliation after another. She's the most cheated on woman in America, by far. I mean, there's nobody even close. Not even porn stars. Hillary leads everybody in most cheated on woman in America status and category. She gave up everything that she could have been, and she was reputed to have been able to do whatever she wanted. Smartest woman in the world to come out of Wellesley and out of Yale, and instead she hitched up with the horn dog from Little Rock and goes there while he does what he does. And every time he got in trouble, she stood by him. She maintained his political profile and helped him raise it. And it's payback time now. She has had one excrement sandwich after another. 2008 was supposed to be her time, but then somebody came along they liked more. It doesn't take much. And it was thought to be somebody with an easier chance at winning, and that'd be Barack Hussein. Oh, Mrs. Clinton was shocked and stunned that the power brokers in the party allowed that to happen. She really, 2008 was supposed to be her coronation, and McCain was the fall guy. Whoever the Republicans nominated, it was Hillary. It was this was the loop being closed. This was the circle being closed. This was all the due bills coming into collection at one moment. And then here comes Obama and the Democrat power structure. The first chance they got, they abandoned Hillary. They left her at the presidential altar, and they got bed with Obama, and the rest is history. Now we're back. It's 2008 all over again. Fait accompli. It's her turn. She's owed. It's a coronation. It's her entitlement to be the nominee and to become president. And now somebody else has popped up. And that's the old codger Bernie Sanders, who's obviously more popular than she is, who draws many more crowds and much larger crowds than she does. Bernie Sanders actually connects with these Looney Tunes that show up at his crowds or at his appearances. I mean, it's Loon City, but at least they're loyal. They love the guy. Hillary doesn't have that. She doesn't have any love. She has not very much respect. She's got a fake loyalty in a certain Democrat sector because it's her turn. She's owed. Now, her poll numbers are still in the tank. She's on, her third or fourth announcement that she's running. She's just off a Saturday Night Live appearance to reintroduce herself again as a human being instead of a Nurse Ratched robot. And it's said to have gone pretty well, but it's still up for grabs just how human she came off. Now, another cog has been tossed in, and that's Joe Biden. It's been lurking out there as a possibility. You combine that with the drip email news that the regime has continued to populate the news business with. There have been increasing doubts raised about Hillary and her whole email apparatus, how secure it was, and whether she'd been selling access. I've never seen this much negativism about somebody who remains a viable candidate. I really haven't. Anybody else would be long gone by now as having no chance whatsoever. The odds of being indicted are much greater than being elected. And yet, there she is. So Biden's been lurking out there, and it all really got started at the time of the sad and unfortunate death of the vice president's son, Beau Biden. And shortly after Beau Biden was pronounced dead, a story appeared in the drive-by media. The story was that Beau Biden, half of his face paralyzed due to his illness, begged his father to run for president for him. That news just popped up. It just appeared. At the time, nobody questioned it because who would? The last dying words of a loved and loving son, who would dare pop up and question the veracity of that? So it was just accepted. And that created an emotional bond between some Democrats and Biden. And even in some a sense of inevitability. Why, this must be cosmic and filled with karma. Dying son, last breath, please, Dad, do it for me. This was accompanied by news stories that Joe was so distressed and so emotionally bereft over the death of the beloved son that he didn't know if he could go on. He didn't know if he had the emotional fortitude and the energy to actually engage in the rigors of a presidential campaign. And while all that was being said, the last dying words of the beloved son rang in the air. Please, Dad, do it for me. There was no doubt in my mind what the end result of all this was going to be. And as we got further and further away from the sad day of the death of the son of Joe Biden, the news about Biden's candidacy intensified. And its likelihood and possibility continued also to intensify on the positive side. Bernie Sanders is still out being Looney Tunes with his audience, and Hillary is still trying to be human and connect with people and going on Saturday Night Live. The people are still asking, what if Joe gets in? What if Joe gets in? If Joe gets in, will Obama really lower the boom? Will there be an indictment on Hillary? Because it's always been assumed Obama's pulling the levers on all this. So here you have a presumptive Democrat nominee. Let's just stop at this point and take stock of where we are. A presumptive Democrat nominee, Hillary Clinton. Second presidential campaign in a row, from 2008 to this year, where it's hers. It is her time. It is her coronation. The Democrat Party is now going to make it official and make her the nominee and coronate her president in a giant act of terrific appreciation, gratitude, and thanks for all she did to maintain the viability of Bill Clinton and thus the Democrat Party. But despite that, over there's Bernie Sanders, and now lurking over there's Joe Biden. And it becomes clear to an objective observer that there's a whole lot of Democrats who have not signed on to this Hillary Clinton coronation. Because if it really were Hillary's campaign, Biden wouldn't be getting anywhere near it. I mean, if it was an official party decision that this is Hillary's time, it's her turn, she's owed this, then Biden wouldn't be getting, and Bernie Sanders would have been taken care of by now. If it was really, really written in stone that Hillary's the nominee, they wouldn't allow all this stuff within the party to go on that just serves to weaken her. Not to mention what the Republicans are doing. She has to know this. She has to be sitting there in the privacy of wherever she is, in Chappaqua or Washington, wherever she is, she has to be seething. This is the second time in a row they're trying to take it away from her. She's got to be privately seething and plotting how she's going to get even with everybody. So she got Huma working overtime. She's got Sidney Blumenthal working overtime. Oppo Research is at full speed ahead. Hillary allies and media doing everything they can. But still, it's not hers. And today we have a story from the Politico. It's an exclusive. The headline, Biden himself leaked word of his son's dying wish. Subheadline is, the vice president is mourning. He is also calculating. Here is the thrust of the story. Joe Biden has been making his 2016 deliberations all about his late son since August. August 1st, to be exact, the anniversary of the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Also happens to be the day renowned Hillary Clinton critic Maureen Dowd, known in Washington as Modo, published a column that marked a turning point in the presidential speculation. According to multiple sources, it was Joe Biden himself who talked to Modo, painting a tragic portrait of a dying son. Beau Biden's face partially paralyzed, sitting his father down and trying to make him promise to run for president because, quote, this was in Modo's column, are you ready? The White House should not revert to the Clintons and that the country would be better off with Biden values. That is what Biden told Maureen Dowd his son said to him. Beau Biden's dying words to his dad. Dad, the White House should not revert to the Clintons. The country would be better off with Biden values. It was no coincidence that the preliminary pieces around a prospective campaign started moving right after Modo's column. People read Modo, and they started reaching out. Those around the vice president would say, by way of defensive explanation, he was just answering the phone and listening. But that column by Maureen Dowd sent the signal that Joe Biden was in, and all of these people started reaching out, wanting to be part of the campaign, wanting to raise money, wanting to donate money. Meanwhile, Joe is emotionally bereft, can barely get out of bed, still mourning the death of the beloved son, Beau Biden. In truth, says the Politico, Joe Biden had effectively placed an ad in the New York Times asking these people to call him. That's what the Maureen Dowd column was. Joe Biden feeds Maureen Dowd the story of the last words of Beau Biden as he's dying. That serves as an ad. The first Biden presidential campaign ad disguised as a Maureen Dowd column, which sent the signal to donors and fundraisers and other interested parties to call Biden because he's in the game. Before that moment and since, Biden has told the Beau Biden story to many. Sometimes details change, the setting, the exact words. The version he gave Modo delivered the strongest punch to the gut, making the clearest swipe at Clinton by enshrining the idea of a campaign against her in the words of a son so beloved nationally that his advice is now beyond politics. Wait, what? What? The words of a son so beloved nationally? Who knew? I'm going to run a little focus group here. Rachel, you ever heard of Beau Biden before today? Did you beloved him? Do you have a deep affection for him? You were waiting to see what Beau Biden... You knew of him, but that was it, right? So where does this... Nothing against Beau Biden, don't misunderstand. I'm just saying, son beloved nationally? Maybe posthumously, they mean. Anyway, his dying words, Dad, this country can't take the Clintons anymore. You gotta run, man, is the way it gets translated. And so now the Clintons are out there learning about all this today in the Politico. Joe Biden didn't say it. A dying son said, how do you attack the dying son? Bill Clinton can't go out there and say, yeah, I knew that kid long before he died. He never made sense. You can't say that. You can't do it. The kid died. The young man died. You can't. They've put all of this in the words. Joe Biden himself put all of this in the words of his dying son. And now it's leaked to Modo, and the Politico has run it all down. I'm watching people on TV today, all these political pros and experts and analysts, strategists analyzing all this and suggesting, Biden, he better go out there and address this. If this isn't true, he owes it to especially the Clintons, he owes it to go out there and say that Maureen Dowd got this wrong. If this is right, then I don't know, there's going to be hell to pay in the Democrat Party. I don't think Biden said anything yet. He won't. But I'll guarantee it, I don't know how in the world Biden or anybody else will go out and throw his son, who just died, overboard. That isn't going to happen. One person who's recently spoken to Biden about the prospect of running said, calculation sort of sounds crass, but I guess that's what this is. The head is further down the road than the heart is. How stupid do they think we are? The head is further down the road than the heart is. It's sort of crass, this calculation. It's politics, for crying out loud. Anyway, bottom line is the Democrat Party is still filled with people who want nothing to do with Hillary Clinton, folks. The bottom line. Okay, yes, we go to the phone, starting here this time with Lorain, Ohio, and Brian. And Brian was on hold yesterday. We got his permission to call him back today. Thank you for letting us do that, Brian. How are you?
You're welcome. I'm doing good, Rush. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Have at it.
Have at it. I called in 6.5 years ago and got to speak with you, and you let me have it. And it didn't take me long to realize, after you let me have it, that how right you were and how wrong I was. I worked on Obama's first campaign as a volunteer in Lorain, Ohio, and, I was a staunch supporter. And I believed the, nonsense that he was spewing. And since then, it didn't take me long to realize what a mistake that I made and what a mistake that this country's made in keeping him president for 2 terms.
What did I do? You say that I let you have it. What did I do? What were you saying that made me let you have it?
Well, the discussion that we were having was in regards to Air Force One and corporate CEOs being able to use their aircraft, and I was defending, the president, and as a supporter, I was defending him, and it didn't take me long after that conversation, thinking about it and seeing what was taking place to realize how wrong I was.
This had to do with class envy? I mean, was this when he was telling CEOs they couldn't get on their jets and go to Vegas anymore, but he's flying around to fundraisers and all over on Air Force One?
Right, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. Oh, I remember. That was early on in the regime.
That was very early on, and since then, so many things, that Obama has said was going to happen, regarding transparency of the government, race relations, the national debt. Obamacare is not, what he said it was going to be. There's dozens of things. Our international standing is worse than it's ever been. He was criticizing President Bush for using surveillance on Americans. And
Brian, I want to stop you because I've got 15 seconds for the break. I want you to hold through the break, and I want you to consider this question. I want you to answer this question for me. I'm dead serious. Why didn't you believe me when you first heard me? This is very important to me. Why didn't you believe me when you were an Obama volunteer about what I told you was going to happen? Back in a second. Yeah, we're back with Brian in Lorain, Ohio here. Brian, you know what I did? I went back and researched you, found out you called on February 16th, 2009. You're barely, 3 weeks into the administration, and your call, I remember, it was all about class envy. We even put your call, we posted it at rushlimbaugh.com.
Yes, you did.
And called you the poster child for class envy. And
yes, you did.
Yeah, well, you were useful to us.
Guilty as charged.
Back then.
Back then, yes.
I understand youthful exuberance and loyalty and excitement. Who's Obama is brand new and appears to be untainted by the political process. There's all this disgust and anger at Bush that the media had ginned up, and maybe some of it was genuine. But here I was. I was being as honest as I knew how to be, and I was trying to persuade as many people as possible that Obama was not who they thought he was. And I really would like to know, if you've had a chance to think about it, why didn't you believe me when I was even before the election, after the election? You're just a month, almost to the day. You called a month to the day after I said I hope he fails.
Right.
And that was January 16th of 2009. And
right.
So what was it that you didn't want to believe me, or you didn't? I didn't have. What was the reason?
And I say we because I know there's millions of Americans out there that feel the same way I do now. We did not believe that an American president would have the audacity to do what Obama has done. It seemed like you were talking nonsense. How could anybody believe that the president was going to do what's taken place over the past 6 years? And it's absolutely amazing the backpedaling and the backsliding this country has done internationally, nationally, religiously. It's amazing. Nobody would have believed it 6 years ago.
No, a lot of people are still in denial now.
Well, we need to wake up, and we need to wake up soon.
Well, I could not agree more. And I must tell you, Brian, there are a lot of Americans who think it's too late. We're waking up too late. People realize that too much now has been done. There's too much entrenched. I mean, you look at Arabic is the fastest growing spoken language in America. The 62%. What is the census number here? Hang on just a second. I need to get this. I need to click on a website. Something like 63 non-English, 63.4 million non-English speaking people, and growing.
Sir,
in the country. We're tearing down the Ten Commandments everywhere. We're canceling America Day in high schools because of who it offends.
Sir, there's one thing that Americans need to think about, even those listeners that are not Christians. The direction that this country is headed in is very dangerous, because if we're moving religious freedoms now, whose freedoms are we going to be removing next? That's the slope that we're on, and we need to stop it. And Christians need to wake up and stand up and say enough is enough. We need to put a stop to this.
That's what the Trump candidacy represents in a lot of people's minds. That's why Trump has attracted the support and the attention of so many people. That's exactly what that candidacy personifies or epitomizes or represents. You know, you're right about religious liberty. If we lose that, what's next? The thing about religious liberty is it's the whole basis on which this country was founded. The entire basis. The first premise, going back to the Pilgrims. Now, you might say, well, Rush, the Pilgrims were in 1600. They had nothing to do with the founding. They most certainly did. You cannot read our founding documents. You cannot read the beliefs, speeches, statements of the Founding Fathers and not see the influence of the early settlers in this country, the Pilgrims, who were fleeing religious tyranny in Europe. And now we're giving in to it again. We're literally giving in to religious tyranny after a country which was essentially founded on the premise of religious liberty, that no government, no state can sponsor a religion, and therefore it cannot tell you what you can believe or not believe, and it cannot punish you for what you believe. And that's going by the wayside. People are, in fact, getting punished for what they believe, and the state is either helping or standing aside and letting it happen. You know it's bad when individual states have to concoct individual laws which state that the citizens in those states have religious freedom, when it's already in the Constitution. It's already part of the Declaration of Independence. It's already intrinsic to the founding of our country. And now we've got to publish statutes that remind people of it, and even those are attacked and watered down by the sponsors. Give me Jennifer in Floyd, Iowa next. Look, Brian, I appreciate the call. Thanks much. It's not easy to do what he did. Call here and do a mea culpa. So I appreciate it, and I'm glad you do. We'll put your call back up on the website tonight so that people can remember what happened was, or reacquaint themselves with your original call back in 2009 on February 16th, just so people can hear your call today and hear your call back then and 7 years ago and hear the transformation you have undergone. Jennifer in Floyd, Iowa, you're next. It's great to have you. Hello.
Hey, Rush. It's good to be on your show, and I hope you don't get a really bad cold. I hope you just...
I have to say, it's creeping up. I can feel it almost by the hour here. I'm starting to get feverish, starting to sweats and stuff. It just ticks me off, Jennifer. It just ticks me off. I'm supposed to be immune from this. I smoke enough cigars to stay immune from it.
Yeah. Well, I was just calling about the Ten Commandments. Anytime anything like this happens in our country, I get so upset and so frustrated, because if anyone would just take the time to go back and look at our founding documents, to look at the Mayflower Compact, and it talks about God and how it was for the advancement of the Christian faith. And if you go back and look, I believe it was the Continental Congress, when they met in 1777, they recommended and approved that this nation bring in 20,000 Bibles, because there was a shortage of Bibles in this country. And there's just so many quotes, and there's just so much about that in our history, and yet no one bothers to look back at it, or it's not. No,
that's not. That's actually, no, that is true, but that's not what's happening. What's happening is, and it's happening all over the world, but it's focused here because we are the leading free nation of the world. And so we are going to be the biggest target of people who are opposed to freedom, and particularly religious freedom, and particularly Christianity. Now, what's happening is, and it's not new, it has been going on for a long time, there is an all-out assault on the founding of this country as illegitimate. And everything about it is illegitimate, from belief in Christianity. And in fact, it is the belief in Christianity from which flows all of our sins. Slavery, discrimination, bias, whatever we're guilty of. Racist, sexism, bigotry, homophobia, all of those things are claimed to come from the Bible. What the Democrats believe about Christianity is good, and that is the government should give everybody things called charity. And that's as far as it goes. But conservatism and Christianity is discriminatory, it's biased, it's white privilege, all of these things. And so the very legitimacy of the country is under assault and has been. The legitimacy of Christianity is under assault and has been. And it's been a slow creep, so that we've gotten to where we are here without a shot having been fired. There hadn't been declarations of war, unless you've been paying attention to the multiculturalists, unless you've been paying attention to what's happening in the curriculum in schools, unless you've been paying attention to what's happening on college campus, unless you've been paying attention to what's happening in the Democrat Party, you would never know of this all-out assault. You wouldn't realize that global warming is part of it. You wouldn't realize that gun control is part of it. You wouldn't realize that national health care is part of it. You wouldn't realize that taxing the rich is... Everything the Democrat Party stands for and supports is about tearing down the foundational building blocks of this country under the guise that it was illegitimate and immoral and mistreated certain people, even to the point now that we don't even deserve to be here after what we did to the Native Americans. And we don't deserve to be here after what we did to the Mexicans. And we don't deserve to be here because we had slaves. And we don't deserve to be here, period. We should never have come in the first place. There should never have been the Pilgrims. There should never have been Columbus. There should never have been any migration from old world to new. And so we're going to make it so that that didn't happen, these people say, by conquering and reconstituting and transforming this country. And we elected a president to lead the charge. And I would dare say that 90% of the people, maybe 80% of the people who voted for him had no idea what they were doing, just like this previous caller that we had. But, I was happy to hear you read the Mayflower Compact. There's a reason why in the Rush Revere children's book series we started with the Pilgrims. Rush Revere and the Brave Pilgrims chronicles the first stages of the founding of this country. And it is a story that is being mistold and perverted throughout the public school system in this country for years now. And, we're close to over 1.5 million of those, the first book alone, in print, and it continues to sell. We're now the fourth version of the Rush Revere series, Rush Revere and the Star-Spangled Banner. Pre-orders right now. The book hits on October 27th. And for us, see, we get to do something about it, folks. We get to fight back. It's a very rewarding and heartwarming endeavor for us. And I get to come here every day and speak to you through this microphone, and I, at least at the conclusion of each day, have a sense that I've been able to at least help or do something. And a lot of people want to do more than they think they can do, and so they do what they can by supporting various political candidates or causes. But I know there's a lot of frustration all over the country. We're a majority that's being tyrannized out of our leadership. We are still the majority. By we, I mean traditional Americans, good old-fashioned Americans that believe in the founding. I'm not speaking demographically, and I'm not speaking religiously. I'm talking about people and what they believe and the way they live their lives. But we're being governed by a very, very small minority. We're being governed against our will. And people are caving under the premise that we've been mean and it's time to be nice. And so if there's somebody offended out there over the American, okay, we won't show you the American flag. Don't hate us. We're offended by Ten Commandments. We're not Christians. We're offended by the Ten Commandments. Well, the attitude ought to be, screw you. You wanted to live here? This is who's here. The United States of America was founded as a Judeo-Christian country. If you want to live here, that's what you're going to see. If you don't want to live here, then go somewhere else. But don't come here. You don't get to come here and change who we are, but yet they are. And people are laying down and letting it happen under the guise of appeasement, less resistance equals peace, not being offensive, or what have you. And there's a lot of fear rolled into this as well. But you know, you and the previous caller are exactly right. When religious freedom is explicitly being targeted right now. And if that goes, the legitimate question, well, what next? And, of course, all freedom is under assault, and it always is, by the way, folks. The history, as I've said countless times, of the human race is tyranny, bondage, dictatorship, suffering, jails, prisons, torture, you name it. That's what this country is the exception to. And tyrants are threatened by free people and freedom, and this country has always been the outpost of it. It's what's constantly under assault. It always has been. It's just until recently we have begun to agree with our critics in way too many sectors of the country. By the way, folks, there's an advantage to pre-ordering the latest Rush Revere book, Rush Revere and the Star Spangled Banner, cheaper. You can get the book for $12 on pre-order. It's a $19.99 list price, but it's $12 at Amazon now. I think it's the same at Barnes and Noble. But there is a reason to pre-order. It's not that we're going to run out of books on launch day. It's not like iPhones. I mean, there's going to be books, but it is cheaper. Now, I have here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers. Maybe I need more nicotine stains on my fingers and stave off this stupid cold. I can't tell you, it ticks me off. It's feverish. I hate it. Anyway, I have the Mayflower Compact here, and I'd like to read to you how it opens. This is the beginning of the Mayflower Compact. Having undertaken for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith and honor of our king and country, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia, do by these presents, solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one of another, covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body for our better ordering and preservation and furtherance of the ends aforesaid, and by virtue hereof to enact laws, ordinances, acts, constitutions, and offices from time to time as shall be thought most meet and convenient for the general good of the colony, unto which we promise all due submission and obedience. Now, they originally did intend to land in what is now Virginia. And things happened. They ended up on the hook of Cape Cod. And they called it Plymouth. They spelled it with an I. And Plymouth Colony was born. And you know the rest of the story. They originally tried to set up a socialist-type existence where everybody got an equal share of everything that was produced, and they found that the laggards and the lazy just fed off everybody else. So Bradford said, screw this, and they let everybody keep what they produced. And they turned to capitalism, and that was the basis of the first Thanksgiving. That. The courage to abandon the original socialism and move towards something else, and it worked so well they had enough bounty to share with the Indians. Yep, it wasn't the Indians sharing, it was the other way around, and that was the thing. So, having undertaken for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith, I mean, that's 1620, thereabouts, and that's the early days of the beginnings of the United States of America, folks. Another hour in the can, and on the way over, my courier to the Limbaugh Broadcast Museum at rushlimbaugh.com. It's virtual, but it's a great site if you haven't been there. We've got to take a brief time out here at the top of the hour. Much more yet to go. You hang in there, be tough. Back before you know it, folks. Now, why in the world would this be happening? The White House has just announced, folks, that the Department of Justice is investigating the Afghanistan hospital attack. Well, Afghanistan didn't attack. We did. We attacked the hospital. We killed some people, and the DOJ is going to investigate this? What are they looking for? Signs of hate crimes or racism? Why is the DOJ looking? Why wouldn't the Department of Defense look into this? The DOJ is looking into this? Does this mean, I know what it is. In 5 months, Afghanistan's going to have to make a deal with the DOJ, and we're going to run their police force. Just like we did in Ferguson. That's what it is. The DOJ is going to find Afghanistan guilty of our bombing them. That's exactly what a DOJ is going to say. Afghanistan doesn't know what they're doing, and they need us to come in and run the Afghan police department. Except there aren't any African Americans there, so but I can think of nothing else. The DOJ. Anyway, greetings and welcome back, folks. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network and Limbaugh Institute. The telephone number, 800-282-2882. You remember, there is a lunatic disguised as a college professor at, where is this, babe? Is it Penn State? Where this, come on. It's an Ivy League school. It's University of Penn. And the woman's name is Anthea Butler. We've talked about this woman before. She doesn't believe in God, Christianity. She's just a lunatic. I mean, little lunatic. And she slandered this show once because of some criticisms we offered of what she teaches. Anyway, the woman's in the news, Anthea Butler, because she has called Ben Carson a coon. University of Pennsylvania professor Anthea Butler called presidential candidate Ben Carson a coon for claiming that people have the right to display Confederate flags on private property. If only there was a Coon of the Year award, Professor Butler tweeted in response to another tweet linking to a Sports Illustrated article in which Carson was quoted defending the right of NASCAR fans to fly Confederate flags during races. So Butler's tweet insinuated that Carson is a metaphorical slave who belongs in a wooden shed. The word coon is an offensive term to slander Africans, deriving from the Portuguese word barracus, which is a hut-like dwelling used to store slaves during auctions. That's the root of the word coon, I guess. Anyway, she's black, so she can say, I guess, whatever she wants to say. And this is, I said, she's a religious studies professor, and this is not the first time that she has made an outrageous tweet or statement like this. Anthea Butler believes that God is a white racist carrying a gun and stalking young men. That's a quote. And she said that because George Zimmerman was found not guilty in the Trayvon Martin case. She also made similar bizarre remarks during the death of the gentle giant in Ferguson, referring to it as a blood sacrifice. And she has tenure. She once bragged that she can't get fired over criticisms from the right, people like me and Sean Hannity and the College Fix. This is a campus reform website. We've posted the contretemps we've had with this woman at rushlimbaugh.com back on July 22nd of 2013. And she's insane. And she's a tenured Ivy League professor, religious studies. Here you have it. I mean, here you have a woman on campus that's actually advocating against Christianity and so forth. Nothing can be done about it. But how many other people do you think get away with calling an African American in this country a coon? And nothing is going to happen to her. Nobody's going to say a word to her about it. In fact, the people that criticize her are going to end up being targets. By the way, there's something here about the American flag and the Confederate. Yes! Get this, folks. This is the Media Research Center, Brent Bozell and the boys. Here's the headline. NPR, National Public Radio, uses taxpayer dollars to create a replacement for the Confederate flag. In the wake of the nationwide effort to remove the Confederate flag, NPR has decided to spend some of its money, which is taxpayer money. NPR exists on the basis of government grants. They're going to spend some of that money to commission a design company to come up with a replacement for the Confederate flag. The design group or the branding group is called 70KFT. That's 70KFT. And they came up with this design as an alternative for Southerners who wish to display their regional pride but shouldn't use the Confederate flag anymore because it symbolizes racism and bigotry and sexism and homophobia and all of that. Gus Granger is the founder of 70KFT, the design company. He said the South is unique as a region in that it already has an informal definition. The problem is that obviously this community that people feel so passionate about has out-of-date visual assets to help define its identity. So here you have a bunch of Northerners that are going to sit around and redesign the Confederate flag for people in the South and say, here, use this. This is better for you. The assets that you have now, i.e. the Confederate flag, that's no good. It's unacceptable to us. So here, we're going to redraw your flag for you and some other symbols for you. And then we're going to leave where we live. We're going to move to where you live, and we're going to start voting liberal Democrat. And we're going to corrupt where you live. We're going to bring our pro-tax, big government beliefs that have forced us out of the East because we can't afford to live there anymore. We're going to move to where you live, and we're going to do the same thing to you that's happened to us. Because we're going to come move where you are, but we're not going to become you. We're going to continue to vote liberal Democrat, and someday we're going to have to leave this place and go someplace else. This is a story in the Washington Times, and this one is so under the radar, and it ought not be. It's a really long and detailed article. It's 2,300 words, but I don't need nearly that many to tell you what this story is. John Solomon, the editor of the Washington Times, has the byline. The headline is, Bill Clinton White House suppressed evidence of Iran's terrorism. Bill Clinton's administration gathered enough evidence to send a top-secret communique accusing Iran of the deadly 1996 Khobar Towers terrorist bombing, but the Clinton administration suppressed that evidence and kept it from the American public and some elements of U.S. intelligence for fear it would lead to an outcry for reprisal, and Clinton had no desire to counterattack Tehran. Bill Clinton did not want to have to confront Tehran. He had evidence that Iran was instrumental in the Khobar Towers attack. A lot of Americans died in that attack. That was Saudi Arabia. Before Clinton left office, the intelligence pointing toward Iran's involvement in the terror attack in Saudi Arabia that killed 19 servicemen and wounded hundreds was deemed both extensive and credible, according to the memos that John Solomon saw here. It included FBI interviews with a half-dozen Saudi co-conspirators who revealed they got their passports from the Iranian embassy in Damascus, i.e. Syria, for those of you in Rio Linda, reported to a top Iranian general and were trained by Iran's Revolutionary Guard, according to the Washington Times. And basically, that's all you need to know about the story. It's 2,300 words, but the Clinton administration gathered enough evidence to send a top-secret communique accusing Iran of facilitating the Khobar Towers attack, 1996, in Saudi Arabia, knew it was Tehran, and suppressed it. By the way, all of this has been corroborated by the former head of the FBI, Louis Freeh, who says the Clinton administration had decided they wanted to improve relations with Iran. And so there was no release of this evidence to the American people that the Iranians were behind it. Everybody thought it was bin Laden or al-Qaeda or a precursor. Those Islamic terrorists, they were right about that. It was just nobody thought it was Iran. Clinton knew that it was Iran, didn't tell anybody because didn't want the pressure of having to retaliate. The revelations about what the Clinton administration knew are taking on new significance with the recent capture of the accused mastermind of the attack, which has occurred in the shadows of the U.S. nuclear deal with Iran, which is something the media ignored because they didn't want any hard feelings toward Iran while Obama was paving the way for them to get a nuclear. So the last two Democrat presidents have played footsie with Iran while publicly stating policy initiatives that were not true, meaning Clinton and Obama have both spoken tough about Iran, but they haven't meant it. This is incredible. And this is like Black Hawk Down all over again, except we knew about that. Khobar Towers, 19 Americans. There's a huge terror attack in Saudi Arabia in 1996. Clinton knew from the get-go it was the Iranians and suppressed the evidence. And he knew, probably, it's not mentioned here, but it wasn't long after this that the Lewinsky thing happened, and that had to be some people inside the Clinton administration who had to think that might pop too. So, anyway, two Democrat presidents, both looking the other way as Iran behaves as it is. Just incredible. We got some audio sound bites here, folks, about the Clinton campaign, the Hillary Clinton campaign. We talked about it earlier in the program. We'll start here. Last night, Bloomberg TV, All Due Respect. This is the show hosted by Mark Halperin and John Heilemann. And they had Jennifer Palmieri on. She's a Clinton campaign spokeswoman. And Halperin said, look, is Hillary a normal candidate? Well, what kind of question is it? These are people in the tank for Hillary. Is Hillary a normal candidate? What's the basis for the question? Anyway, here's what Jennifer Palmieri said.
The elements are all there of campaigning like a normal person. A lot of contact with voters, a lot of one-on-one time with voters, big town halls, just to hear answering a lot of questions. She loves all that. A lot of interviews as well, a lot of local and national.
Sorry, we don't see any of that. We had a call here on Friday that Hillary had an event down at Broward College, some university in Broward County, and she was running late. C-SPAN was covering it. She turned out to be an hour and a half late. Nobody showed up at this thing, and in fact, the few people that did began to trickle out when she was late. She's habitually late like Obama is. She shows disrespect, but she doesn't do a lot of interviews. She doesn't draw big crowds. She doesn't have a lot of contact with voters. She doesn't do a lot of one-on-one time with voters. She doesn't do big town halls because nobody shows up at them. Now, Trump is leading in every poll, yet they have him dropping out of the race. Hillary is losing to Bernie Sanders everywhere, and in some places, she's not losing to Bernie Sanders, she's losing to Trump. She's in Iowa, New Hampshire. She's losing to Carly Fiorina. She's losing to Jeb Bush. And yet, Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington, says that she is on fire.
Hillary Clinton was on fire today, lashing out at the House Benghazi Committee. Never a good frontrunner, Clinton is now an underdog in New Hampshire, trailing Bernie Sanders, who drew 20,000 people in Boston Saturday. And with Biden in, she falls farther behind. Clinton didn't shy away from her emotional side, proposing new gun controls.
Yeah, she's on fire. She's on fire. She should kind of fire somebody. Needs to get a fire extinguisher because it isn't good. Bernie Sanders beating her, outdrawing her, all this other. She's on fire and barely staying alive. And now Biden getting. She's on fire, man. She really. All that means is Hillary came alive. Hillary the robot disappeared, and it appeared she got angry. It's a new strategy for Hillary to get mad out there. And then there's a second phase, and that's to start crying and get all choked up. And that's what happened. Yesterday morning, she was angry. By the evening, she was emotional. 2 nights before, she was laughing on Saturday Night Live. So she's trying to run the full gamut of the Hillary Clinton emotional curve Here she is in Manchester, New Hampshire yesterday.
So many of the parents of these precious children who were murdered have taken the unimaginable grief that they have been bearing and have tried to be the voices that we need to hear.
It was a video that killed people in Benghazi. It's the gun that killed the students in Oregon. Got that? The video killed Americans in Benghazi, not the guns, not the terrorists, the video. In Oregon, it's the gun. Even the shooter is a victim, a guy that we need to pity. Excuse me a minute. What do you mean? Am I impressed by how sincere? That sounded sincere? Wait a minute. Play that again. I didn't hear sincere. Maybe I wasn't listening for it. Play soundbite number, was it 8? Yeah, number 8. Play it again, Friday.
So many of the parents of these precious children who were murdered have taken the unimaginable grief that they have been bearing and have tried to be the voices that we need to hear.
Huh. It's all calculated. What did you say it was? Genuine? Almost sincere. Okay, well, good for her. That's how you hear it. Fine and dandy. Who am I to say? Okay, folks, the ditto cam's not on because I'm going to turn it on in a minute because what I've got here, I've got a drawing of the new Confederate flag designed by Northerners for you people in the South who can't use a Confederate flag anymore because it stands for racism, sexism, bigotry, hatred, murder, lynching, and whatever else they say it is in the North, at the left. So this group, 70 KFTS, whatever it is, the group that NPR hired with your tax dollars to design a new Confederate flag. You ready for it? Okay, here we go. There is the new Confederate flag as designed and commissioned by NPR. That is the new flag that's supposed to remind you of your unique culture in the South. I'm sorry if you don't have the ditto cam, if you're not listening, streaming the program on the app or the website. You have to be a member to get the ditto cam. But we'll have this at rushlimbaugh.com later, the actual graphic. This is just a printed copy of it. The text underneath this says, the result is a symbol that is patriotic, energetic, modern, and tells a positive and relevant visual story about the South. Okay, now that you've heard, I'm going to put it back up there. Underneath this flag, what the text says that you saw it a moment ago, the result is a symbol that is patriotic, energetic, modern, and tells a positive and relevant visual story about the South. Okay, so what is that positive, relevant visual story about the South that you see in that flag? Does that flag say anything about the South to you, Mr. Snerdley? If you saw that flag, Rachel, would you know, wow, what a great way to represent the South. No bars, there's bars, there's no stars. There's nothing. I mean, there's nothing in this flag that would make you think that it is a descendant of the Confederate flag of the South at all. And again, the name of the design, 70 KFT. Hired by NPR, commissioned, a design firm and marketing firm, to a bunch of Northerners, basically, Northeastern liberals. I guess they're Northeastern. NPR, design your new Confederate flag to show the relevant visual story, positive, relevant visual story of the South. Hubba. Elizabeth in Washington, D.C., you're next. I'm glad you waited, and hello.
Hi, it's an honor to speak with you.
Thank you very much.
Yesterday you had a caller mention the traction that Bernie Sanders is gaining in the polls, and you said that if the Clintons or the Democratic Party really wanted to take him out, they could, and they probably would. And I was wondering if you thought the GOP establishment had the same type of power to take out Donald Trump.
Well, it wouldn't be as easy, and the reason is that Bernie is an active daily voting with a Democrat who is seeking the presidency under normal circumstances, Democrat Party with fundraising and this kind of thing. And it's a fine line. I mean, any powerful group can exert pressure on anybody, including the GOP against Trump and the RNC against Trump. In the case of Bernie Sanders, what I mean by that is the Democrat Party is content right now with Bernie to be doing what he's doing because he's generating enthusiasm among Democrat voters. But the problem with Bernie is that he really means all this anti-corporate stuff. And the Democrats are in bed with corporate America now. The Democrats are in bed with Wall Street. They're in bed with high finance. They are in bed with big money people. The old saw that it's the Republican Party and big business that are tied together is gone. The Democrat Party owns that. All those donors and all those CEOs, the high finance houses and the banks, they all vote and raise money for the Democrat Party. And Democrats know that that Bernie Sanders means it. If he ever got to the Oval Office, he would genuinely launch an attack on them. And that's what the Democrats will not permit. So when I say they won't let him, they'll do something. They would monkey with convention rules or do something that would deny Bernie the nomination. On the Republican side, the Republicans have been trying to take Trump out since the first debate. Mm-hmm. And since, Trump is not accepting any donations, he's not running under the umbrella of the Republican National Committee. He's really an independent candidate. I know Bernie Sanders is not a registered Democrat either. He's an independent, but he falls much more under the purview of the Democrat Party than Trump does under the Republican Party right now. Bernie does not have any independent power, resources. He's a pauper. He can't sustain himself. He needs a lot of allies and assistants. Trump is entirely different in that regard. Plus, you'd have to get who is the Clinton equivalent on the Republican side that would have an army and a group of people that, when the time comes, cut Bernie off at the knees. Who is the Hillary on the Republican side that could do that to Trump? I mean, can you name anybody? It could be the Jeb Bush organization. Who is it?
Well, that's who I would think comes to mind. Would be Jeb Bush.
Yeah, I tell you. Let me find it here because I mentioned it earlier in the program. There's a Daily Beast story today about Jeb and how he ought to just cash it in, just get out. It's over. He's dragging the whole party down. And I must have put it in a different stack here. I'll find it before the program ends. But it's making the point here that he's dragging everybody down. He's wasting a bunch of money. He's fixing it so there's no way that he can win. And he would be doing the country such a great favor if he were to just back out of the race. It's the first place I've seen it, even it is a left-wing website. But no, just off the top of my head, Elizabeth, I don't think that the Republican apparatus would have the same open season on Trump as the Democrats have on Bernie. I mean, at the end of the day, and look, folks, I might be wrong about this Bernie Sanders phenomenon. I might be totally misreading it. But there are plenty of people in the Democrat Party that, if it becomes necessary, can knock on the door that Bernie Sanders answers and essentially ask him if he likes living. I just don't associate that with the Republican side. I mean, even if they have somebody like that, they don't use it on anybody except us conservatives. But they certainly don't use it on Democrats. So, but there's plenty of people. I mean, look, Bob Torricelli, Andrew Cuomo was forced out of politics for a while. Bill Clinton was the architect of both of those. But Bernie, if that happened, I mean, Bernie would go on TV and say, who has left me? Bill Clinton just left here and threatened, he threatened to fit me for cement swimsuit. The crowd would go bonkers and Clinton would deny it and so forth. But then the talk would be, I don't even think, to be honest with you, people on the left are taking Bernie. In the Democrat Party, they're not even taking his candidacy seriously. So he may sneak up on him. I don't know. Elizabeth, I appreciate the call. Thanks. much. There's a couple other things here in the stack. One is a Fox News story that the murder rate in Baltimore just continues and is just roaring out of sight here, even after all of the reforms that have taken place post Freddie Gray. Obama's going to this Oregon town, and nobody wants him to show up out there. The parents don't want him to show up. The mayor, the city fathers of this town don't want Obama. They don't want anybody there. And yet Obama is going to go. They don't want him to come politicize what happened there. They're grieving. It's a real tragedy, and they don't want somebody showing up who's going to try to turn it into an event about him. And a fascinating story here from Forbes. And I may have to save this. This is a fascinating story about millennials and how everything we think about them is wrong. That they are no different from their parents. How many of you have heard, and you've heard me say it, that millennials are not interested in owning anything? They're into the sharing community. That they don't care about cars and homes, none of the traditional things that their parents and grandparents wanted or you and I wanted. None of that interests them. Well, it turns out that may be all wrong. In fact, it may be. It's a Forbes story. Here's how the story begins. This is the year that the millennial population surpasses the number of baby boomers in America. And it goes on to say that these millennial generation people are just like their baby boomer parents. What's made them seem different is the Obama economy and the way they've adapted to it. There aren't any jobs. There aren't any careers. They don't have any money to own a house or own a car. And so it's just been assumed that they have different values. But what the Forbes story says is the exact opposite. They are dying to own homes. They're dying to own cars. And it makes the point again that millennials do not associate, or very many of them do not associate, the current status of the American economy with Obama. Frustratingly and stupidly, they think it's just the country somehow has faded and it's not what it used to be. I don't know how you don't connect what's happening in the country to the policies of the current president. It's never happened in my life before, but apparently these millennials do not make that connection for some reason. And we are back. What happened? What happened to the... what was that woman that you just took her off the board? What was she going to talk about? No, was that what it was? No, it was something else. It was something that was, and I wish she hadn't gone away. I should have said she was coming up next. It wasn't Fast and Furious. It was, because I've got a story here in the stack that was going to relate to what it was she was going to talk about. Anyway, well, David in Santa Barbara, we'll go to you. How are you doing, sir? Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Rush, and mega dittos from the liberal bastion of the West.
Yeah, great to have you with us. Hi.
Thank you. My point is that I think that what should happen next with that canceling the America Day is that the parents should go to the school board and demand that the principal or whoever else was involved in canceling this be terminated, because there's nothing that scares a politician more than thinking that their constituency.
You know what? I totally agree with you. But let me tell you, it's not going to happen. And this is one of the problems. I have told this story I don't know how many times. The reason it's not going to happen is because the parents are afraid that when they leave, that the teacher or the parents is going to give their kid a bad grade and ruin their future. That's the leverage and control the schools have over the parents. I've told you all about this. A woman who told me often that her daughter went to a school that had I guess it was American history, and there was no history taught. This course every day was nothing more than this teacher, a woman, bashing George W. Bush. It was current events right from NBC, ABC, CBS. It was nothing but bashing conservatives, bashing Bush. There was no history. It was nothing but current events. And the teacher in order to disguise what was going on, gave the students, she had to give history exams because there have to be tests and so forth. She gave them the answers to every history exam that supposedly was given. The students didn't complain because, hell, they were given the test. All they wanted was to get the A and get out of there. I asked this woman, why didn't you? I mean, this is outrageous. What's happening? You've got an activist that's taken over a history court. Why don't you do something about it? I don't want my daughter penalized. Parents said nothing's going to happen to that teacher. All of us parents could go in there. Nothing's going to happen to that teacher. The school board's going to defend. The principal's going to defend. All that's going to happen is that my daughter's going to get Fs. So nothing's done about it. A lot of people complain. That's not the only story. I hear countless examples of this kind of thing happening in schools. And why the parents don't, your example here out in Wyoming, that what needs to happen, somebody needs to go and tell the principal X, Y, and Z if this doesn't stop. They're not going to do it because they think their kids are going to get harmed, which is ironic because their kids already are being harmed by what's going on in the classroom. But grades are everything. Grades is how you get into Harvard or whatever college you want. Grades is how you end up impressing other people in town. My kid gets A's or whatever, and they're afraid of grade punishment, so they just don't say anything. And the leftists continue to get away with it all. Well, even if parents go to the school board members who are elected, you still, the school board then tells the administration and principal, you got to stop this. The kid whose parents show up is still going to get punished. That's what the parents think. That's why they don't do anything. Anyway, have a great one, folks.